So this week we will begin with looking at the year AD 43. Now AD 43 is a very important year because that was the year that the Romans were finally able to successfully conquer Britain. They had tried previously, led by Caesar, but it wasn't until they were led by Emperor Claudius in AD 43 that they were successful in conquering England. Now, there was some widespread dissidence. The people living in England at that time did fight back. Most notably, Queen Boudica of the Iceni tribe actually stormed London, the city of London and the city of Colchester, and burnt it to the ground, completely destroyed the settlements. So although these rebellions were quashed by the Romans, who had sophisticated weaponry and were very well organised, they did put up something of a fight. Unfortunately, this didn't work, this rebellion, and the Romans were able to populate and sort of build cities across the land. So there were some areas that weren't actually conquered by the Romans, most notably Scotland. Now, in Scotland today, on the border between north of England and Scotland, you will see fragments of a very old wall. This wall is known as Hadrian's Wall. It was built around the time of the Roman conquest to keep the tribes throughout Scotland out of Roman-occupied England. This is very important to remember that it is in the north of England and it's on the border between England and Scotland. And you can still see remnants of that wall today. Now, we can analyse the Roman conquest of Britain in a number of ways. Of course, on the surface, it seems like a very negative thing. We were, after all, invaded by a foreign power. But the Romans did remain in Britain for around 400 years, which is a very long time. And they also brought along a lot of very important structural changes to our country. So during the 400 years that the Romans remained in Britain, they built roads and public buildings. They also introduced the structure of law and brought new animals and plants to Britain. So by the time the Romans left in AD 410, Britain was very much a changed country. There were lots of very new things that hadn't been there previously. It was a lot more structured, there were far bigger cities, and more importantly than anything, roads along the very sort of rural areas of England. So in AD 410, the Roman army left to defend other parts of the Roman Empire, and England was once again left to its own devices. Now, this left the country open to attack from other areas. And during this time, Britain was invaded by lots of different tribes from Northern Europe. Now, these tribes included the Jutes, the Angles, and the Saxons. In AD 600, the Anglo-Saxon kingdoms were first established in Britain, mostly in England, and we sort of recognise this because we have found that one of their kings, one of the most famous Anglo-Saxon kings, was buried in Sutton Hoo in Suffolk. Now, he was buried with all sorts of treasure, weaponry. Clearly he was very revered, so we can pinpoint this moment in time as the beginning really of the Anglo-Saxon period in England. So that's it for now. Join us next week where we'll be looking at the final conquests of Britain before moving on to some more contemporary history. See you then.